for joining me today. My name is Nicole Bendeley, and for the next hour, I'll be sharing some tips and strategies with you to help you better identify, develop, and retain your emerging leaders. So I look forward to this next hour. This is a topic that is becoming people are becoming increasingly hungry for. And so I'm thrilled to be able to connect with all of you today and to share some knowledge and best practices with you. And on that note, would love to just spend a quick time sharing a little bit about who we are so that you understand where these best practices are coming from, the experience and research behind them that I'll be sharing with you today. So, like I said, I'm Nicole Bendeley. I am the president of Connect, and we are an organization that has been helping teams and leaders really tap into the best of themselves for over 30 years now. And we are seeing a great need to support organizations in identifying their emerging leaders, in really creating a big funnel so that HR and organizational development departments have a good pool of exceptional, talented individuals to draw from to step into leadership roles so that those leaders, those new and emerging leaders, are ready to hit the ground running. And so we're finding that a lot of our focus these days is on developing new and emerging leaders, whereas in the past it had been really primarily focused on developing senior executives and more seasoned leaders. There's still a need there, but we're seeing a real shift and a real need in the emerging leader sector, which I'll talk about the need in a little bit. But we've been working with organizations around the world for over 30 years and have been doing quite a bit of research in understanding the differences between exceptional leaders and the rest, the differences between exceptional teams and all of the rest. And so we'll be sharing a little bit of that research with you as we go along today as well. And we've had a number of books published, all relating to strengthening team and leadership performance. Our most recent book that I co-authored with the founder of our business is for healthcare teams specifically, improving healthcare team performance. And our research has also been published in a number of other books specifically on team and leadership development as well. So that's a little bit about who we are. Didn't want to spend too much on that. You can learn more about us on our website if you're interested, but really want to get to the meat of the topic today. So our agenda today is we're going to start by talking a little bit about the need to focus on your emerging leaders. Why even identify them and develop them and invest in that to begin with? So we'll be talking about that need. Then we'll be looking at how do we identify emerging leaders? How do we identify individuals who are ready and willing to take on a greater role and who are able to demonstrate those practices, those leadership practices that have been found to be essential for an individual to really hit the ground running in a new role as a leader, and essential to enabling the team that they're leading to continue to develop and excel without sort of hitting a roadblock or a pause button as the new leader, gets their feet wet and becomes accustomed to the role. So how do we identify that talent? And then we're going to look at those steps to developing and supporting our emerging leaders as they move into this new management and leadership role. And then finally, great, we've developed these emerging leaders, we've invested in them, and we want to be sure that they don't leave us to go to our neighbor next door or our competitor, right? And we want to keep them in house because we've invested in them, and they're are now making a significant difference to our organization and contributing to our culture. So we want to retain those individuals, and how do we do that? So those are the areas that we're going to be focusing on today. And you'll notice, too, at any point in time, please feel free to pop any questions or comments into the question box on your GoToMeeting, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go along. And I will be recording this session and sending this back out to all of you so that should you want to revisit any of the information, you'll be able to do that. Okay, great. So let's get started. Let's get started with the need. And clearly, we have a number of people on this webinar today. So clearly, you all have an interest or a need to develop emerging leaders within your organization. And I'm sure, as you are all aware of or have even experienced, that traditionally we have seen in organizations that at one time people were promoted because they did their job well, right? Because they did the tasks, the technical requirements of their job really well and they excelled at it, they were then promoted to leadership positions or management positions. And what organizations and HR professionals and team members of these individuals were finding, and the individuals themselves were finding, that just because they were able to do their job well doesn't mean that they had the skills and experience needed to step into a leadership role. The skills and behaviors required to do the task of a nurse or a salesperson or a customer service rep are very different than the skills and behaviors necessary to lead others, to motivate others, to engage others, to lead change. And so we find then a gap in individuals who are stepping into leadership roles are finding a struggle because they don't have the behaviors and skills needed to lead others. They can do the aspects of the specific job very well, but there's a gap in leadership competencies. And we're also, another need that we're seeing is a significant number of people are retiring, and that leaves another leadership gap. And so as a result of this outflux, so to speak, of people leaving organizations, some organizations are having a knee-jerk reaction to promote based on tenure and years of experience versus potential and readiness and willingness to and preparedness to take on leadership roles. And so again, we're seeing people stepping into leadership roles where they are not prepared and ready to actually lead. Okay, and this has an impact in a number of ways, not only on the stress level of the individual stepping into the management role, but on the team on the teams themselves and their ability to continue to excel. So research has actually shown that new managers, first-line managers, are actually the least ready work group. Okay, they are actually less prepared for stepping into their management role than new people entering the workforce, okay, than first-time job holders. Okay, they are the least ready work group of all work groups. And the research also shows that only 62% felt that they were prepared for their role. Okay, that means 38% of people stepping into new leadership roles are feeling unprepared, that they feel that they don't have the skills to lead effectively. And that has a direct impact on team member confidence in their manager, on team satisfaction, on individual engagement. Because research also shows that retention is directly impacted by an individual's perception of the ability of their leaders. If I don't have confidence in my leader, if I don't have a strong relationship with my leader, I am more likely to leave the organization. So a lack of confidence and skills has an impact in a number of areas on a team, and not only on the individual who is stepping into that role. Okay? Also, 45% believe that they lack the skills needed when they actually step into the role. So that means that more time, too much time, is being spent developing skills while in the leadership role, and that's taking away time needed to develop and lead the team effectively. And so that becomes a stress and a time management issue, and at the end of the day, who loses out? The team, the individual team members, and ultimately that leader as well. So we want to be sure that the individuals that we're promoting into these leadership roles are not only excelling at the job that they do, but have the potential to excel and are ready to step into a leadership role by understanding what leadership really is, and by having had the opportunity to build and develop skills around those leadership competencies, which we're going to be talking about. So at the end of the day, this isn't going to be anything new to you, right? When we invest in our leaders, when we develop our leaders, we have better performance. When our leaders are performing exceptionally and are able to lead healthy and develop healthy climates, engage staff, and develop their staff, we have far better retention around all over, not just in our leaders, but in our frontline staff. And that ultimately impacts the bottom line. So the need is clear. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on our call today. So let's get into the more details of this session, which is the first step is identifying your emerging leaders, which can be the biggest step. And it's actually the most important, one of the most important steps in the whole process. And I love this image because it is a jungle out there. And identifying those individuals who are going to be ready and prepared and have that potential to excel in a leadership role is a big challenge. And oftentimes in small to medium-sized organizations that we work with, and I know a number of you are representing smaller to medium-sized organizations, taking the time to identify those emerging leaders can be challenging, and having the expertise to do that can be challenging. And so I want to be sure that you're walking away today with a bit of a roadmap and a clear understanding of the behaviors and practices that you need to look for in order to select the best people for the leadership roles. So I want to talk a little bit first about the difference between potential and performance, which I spoke to briefly a minute ago. So traditionally, organizations had looked at simply performance when promoting, right? Did the person do their job well? How long do they have a lot of experience here at the organization, right? Years of experience and doing the tasks of the job well. What we want to be looking at, though, is the top right quadrant. We want to be looking, yes, at how they're performing, and also at the potential to demonstrate and excel in the behaviors and practices and skills that have been proven to be most essential to a leader's success. So we want to look at the potential to succeed as well, and the potential to be an exceptional leader. And so we're going to talk about how to identify that potential. So we want to look at performance and potential. And then there's also a missing factor that I have been speaking to a little bit, which is readiness. Who is ready within your organization, within your pool of talent? Who has the potential, who has the performance, and who is ready, right? Who has both the ability and willingness to take on greater responsibility? Okay, so we also want to look at that. And that means, are they prepared? Are they prepared to take on this greater responsibility? And so when we talk about being prepared, we want to consider a number of things before we promote to a new leadership role. So prepared means, does this individual fully understand what being a leader means? Right? Because oftentimes what we see when we work with organizations to develop leaders is a disconnect between the role of a leader and managing others. Right? There's the tasks of managing, and then there's the role of the leader in providing feedback, engaging others, leading others towards a vision, motivating, right? And then there's also the challenges of managing expectations, managing that feedback, doing the performance reviews. All of these different areas of being a leader stretch new leaders and must be priorities at the same time. And so oftentimes when people step into a new leadership role, there is a shock at how much time is actually spent on leading others and managing performance. And it's that shock because there isn't often a full understanding ahead of time of what the expectations are when I step into a leadership role. And so being prepared means having a full understanding of that. And we want that understanding to happen before that person steps into the role, right? Also, prepared means fully understanding the challenges that they will face as a leader in making that transition from coworker and friend to boss. And that's a very difficult transition. And so when we're developing emerging leaders to be prepared for their role, we need to be sure that they're prepared to make that switch from coworker to leader and be prepared for the reactions of their coworkers as well. And so that becomes part of the development piece that is essential for ensuring people are ready to hit the ground running when they step into that role. Prepared means having the skills, knowledge, and ability to take on that role, which is what we've sort of been talking about. And then also knowing that, having the confidence that when they do step into that role, that there is support available to them, right? Leadership development, leadership experience, leadership skills, leadership competency comes with time, right? That comes with experience, trial and error, failing and learning from that. And new leaders need to know that there is room for growth here and that there is a support plan in place to help them grow in their leadership role. That yes, they need to be prepared with the basics, which we're going to talk about now in a minute, but there's also room for growth and support there because they will need that, and their team members will need that as well. So when it comes to specifically identifying emerging leaders, the very first thing is about getting very clear for you in your organization what effective leadership looks like. Based on your organization's goals, based on your values, the type of culture you are actively working to create, your mission, your values, what does an exceptional leader look like? And for those of you who are already involved in leadership development, whether it's emerging leaders or not, you probably already have a good indicator of leadership competencies. And you may already, in fact, be measuring against them in your performance review process. So the first step in identifying emerging leaders is having a clear picture of what effective leadership looks like. And on top of that, when we're talking about, sorry, before I jump ahead, when we're identifying emerging leaders, we're not looking for people who can live up to all of the competencies of a leader, right? We want to have an indication of what are those behaviors and practices that are most important in a new leader's role, you know, for that first year. What do they already need to be able to do, knowing that they will have the opportunity to continue to develop? So getting clear on what an exceptional leader looks like, and also what does an emerging leader need to possess, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So the first piece is getting clear, and then the second piece is assessing readiness. Okay, readiness to take on a management or leadership role. So we talked about the performance piece. Yes, the performance in their current job is critical, right? And you're likely already assessing performance through your performance management process. And on top of that, you also want to be assessing leadership readiness. So when we assess leadership readiness for organizations, we're assessing potential, ability, and willingness to take on the role. And I'm going to be sharing with you those indicators that you need to look for in assessing leadership readiness so that you have some specific behaviors and practices and indicators that you can use to assess your own emerging leaders. Okay, so I'm basically giving you your emerging leader readiness assessment as we go through this. Okay, so when you're assessing leadership readiness, you're asking really what skills do they have in these core areas of leadership effectiveness? What are their strengths? What are their gaps? And are those gaps too great to take on a leadership role, or are we willing to develop them because we see that potential there? So really having a clear understanding of what you're looking for and then measuring for it so that you can identify it. So what I want to share with you now are those behaviors and practices and real competencies that you need to look for when identifying emerging leaders. And this is all coming from the research that we've been doing over the past 30 years in really understanding the behaviors and practices that make the biggest difference to a leader's ability to excel and excel in their role not only as a new leader but as a seasoned leader. And so I'm going to be sharing that research with you now so that you can pull out those behaviors and practices and create almost your own leadership readiness assessment. And in doing this research, we were sort of launched into this research and understanding these behaviors and practices because we were consistently being asked this one question from leaders that we work with, which is, how can I achieve greater results with less struggle? How can I do more, achieve more easily, basically? And this question that we were getting from leaders really caused us to ask our own question, which is, what's the difference between leaders who achieve exceptional results with ease and those who struggle to keep up? And so we started to look at those differences. In our work with leaders around the world, with leaders that were able to excel with ease and leaders who struggle to keep up, we identified some key competencies, key behaviors, key practices that those who excelled with ease did regularly. And those who struggled didn't. And through our research, we found that leaders who excelled didn't have, higher IQs, didn't work harder or longer hours, but they did focus on a few key practices consistently that made the biggest difference in their ability to lead others and get things done and achieve results. And so we use that research to develop these 6 competencies of exceptional leaders that we've been using for a number of years and testing for a number of years. And so what I want to share with you is not all of the behaviors and practices of an exceptional leader, but the behaviors and practices that are most essential to a new leader. Okay, so these are the behaviors that you need to look for in your frontline staff who are not yet in a leadership role that you can use to assess their readiness to take on a leadership role. Okay, so let's go through them now. This is what you need to look for. These are indicators of readiness for your emerging leaders. So the first area you want to look for is self-leadership. So when we look at leadership, exceptional leaders need to lead themselves first in order to lead others. There needs to be an element of self-awareness and a recognition of the way in which I lead and the way in which I interact with others has a direct impact on other people, right? They need to be in tune with themselves and the organization's culture and be very intentional with respect to the behaviors and practices they choose to demonstrate and ensure that they're choosing the behaviors and practices that will lead to the best results, the best culture, the best working relationships. So when you're assessing self-leadership amongst your emerging leader group, you want to ask, okay, is this individual looking for opportunities to take on new challenges that will stretch them? Because if they're looking for opportunities to take on new challenges, that tells me they're ready for more responsibility. Okay? Or do they actively seek feedback? Because if they actively seek feedback, that tells me that they are focused on themselves. They are focused on personal improvement and professional development. That's a strong indicator of leadership readiness. Are they taking the initiative to get things done? Are they following through on commitments? Are they reaching for higher levels of performance? Do they set the bar high? Are they acting with integrity? And are they continuously learning and developing themselves? So these are indicators of strong self-leadership that we want to see in our leaders, because if they have self-awareness, if they are motivated to excel, and they look for feedback, those are qualities that we want in our leaders. So that's what we want to look for in our emerging leaders. Okay, and I'm recording this so you can come back to these things to draw from and incorporate into your own leadership readiness assessment should you choose to develop one. Okay. The next thing we look at from a leadership perspective is the ability to develop alliances, not just within teams, but across organizations, right? Collaboration is essential to any organization's success and certainly to a leader's ability to succeed and influence and get the best ideas and develop the best recommendations and make the best decisions. And so when we're looking at the ability to develop alliances within emerging leaders, we want to see, are they already developing collaborative relationships? Do they seek input from other people? Are they connecting and working with people from other parts of the organization? Are they looking for opportunities to support others? Do they build relationships well? Do they ask questions, invite input, right? Harness and support others' capabilities. So these are all indicators that you don't have to be in a leadership role to show that you can collaborate and develop alliances. These are indicators that you can look for in your emerging leaders that would tell you, this person would do well, has the potential to develop alliances in a leadership role. Okay. The next element that we measure when looking at leadership effectiveness is embracing transformation, right? This is really about being innovative and challenging the status quo and looking for new and better ways to do things and not being afraid of taking some risks, right? So really embracing transformation. And oftentimes frontline staff don't have that opportunity to lead innovative ideas, right, or to transform organizations. So what we're looking at is how are people really responding to change? How are people reacting to new and different ways of doing things, right? Are they learning? Are they risk takers? We don't want extreme risk takers necessarily, but we want that flexibility there and comfort level with trying new things. And so asking the question, okay, well, does this person, are they creative? Are they embracing creative ideas? Are they looking for different ways of doing things? Can they think strategically? Do they take a positive attitude towards change? Are they flexible in their response to change, or are they resisting it at all costs? If you're seeing someone who's resisting change and throwing up roadblocks all the time and saying, oh, that'll never work, or that's not how we've always done things, then that's a sign that that's not somebody who is going to embrace transformation. Are they learning from the past, right? And do they demonstrate that flexibility to change course as needed, and are they comfortable with that? So those are some indicators that they would be able to embrace and lead transformation in a leadership role. This next piece is really key when it comes to developing teams and creating an environment of engagement and healthy climate where people are motivated and empowered. So do they demonstrate passion and purpose in what they do? So is this individual results focused, right? Do they keep an eye on the goal and are motivated, self-motivated, and bring other people along to achieving those results? Right? Do they contribute to an environment of high energy? And I don't mean, high energy that we're all, cheerleaders every day and operating at that level all the time, but productive, positive energy moving towards a common goal. Do they inspire others? Do they keep the vision in front of themselves? Do they move forward relentlessly regardless of obstacles that come forward? So these are other areas to look for when identifying your emerging leaders. Passion and purpose and energy is key because, as you all know, right, team members often take their cue from the leader. If the leader is low energy, the team members are going to be low energy. If the leader is too riled up, the team is going to get riled up. And so we want somebody who is passionate and energetic in a way that's going to be motivating for that team and drive that team and engage that team forward to achieving results and really tap into the best of the team. Communication obviously is a key aspect of leadership, right? And it's communication from the perspective of being able to influence and engage others. And we want to ensure that that our new leaders have the skill and ability to communicate effectively. So communication occurs in any role, right? So this is something that you can easily measure for. And some things that you want to look for when it comes to communicating with influence, are they able to provide feedback? Are they able to relay ideas in a way that can be heard? Are they making good judgment calls when it comes to raising sensitive issues or areas that could create conflict? Are they raising them in a way that's going to be heard and received well? Do they communicate respectfully and consistently regardless who they're communicating with, right? Are they approachable? Do they listen to others? Do others feel as though they're being understood by this person? Okay, so look at the way in which they're communicating and interacting with other people. And then this also is key, obviously, to developing teams. So this is critical to leadership success, right? The ability to lead and develop teams towards a common goal. So when we're looking at frontline staff or people who are potentially ready to take on a management role, do they create positive teamwork? Are they a good team player, right? Do other team members respect them and go to them with questions and enjoy having them on their team? Do they look for opportunities to support other team members, right? Is this person recognizing their teammates and celebrating the team? Do they demonstrate a sense of accountability and ownership for the results? And you can tell that by the way they talk about the team, right? Do they take a we approach versus an I approach? Is it we accomplished this, or was it I did this and that's my success? You want somebody who's looking at it from the perspective of a we, not an I or a they. So these are some specific practices and behaviors you can incorporate into your emerging leader assessment to identify potential and readiness there. Okay, so like I said, this is being recorded, and I urge you, I'll send this out to all of you tomorrow. I urge you to come back, and if you're thinking about identifying and developing a leadership readiness assessment, I urge you to come back and look at these components of leadership and pulling out these behaviors and practices that you feel resonate most with your organization. And these are the behaviors and practices that we have found through our research to make the biggest difference in a leader's ability to excel. And what I've pulled out here are those indicators for you to identify emerging leaders within your own organization. So I urge you to pull out what works for you and to begin to develop your own assessment to create your pool of talent that you can draw from, so that you not only have people who are performing well in their job, but also have the potential to be an exceptional leader. And then you can develop them so that they are ready to lead when you say go. And we'll talk about developing in a minute. So we talked about indicators of potential, but I want to talk a little bit about indicators of willingness. So are people willing to take on a leadership role? And it's interesting because depending on the industry, we do a lot of work in healthcare, and that willingness can sometimes be a stumbling block for HR. Especially in a union environment. So, for example, motivating an individual to move from a union position, a non-management position, to a management role, right, that's outside of the union, has been a challenge for a lot of my clients in incenting individuals to, work longer hours and maybe with less pay, but there's that challenge there that people want to have. And so let's take a look at indicators of willingness. So are these individuals looking for opportunities to take on new projects, tasks, and additional responsibilities without being asked to do so? Do they like the challenge? Do they want more responsibility? Are they proactive in asking for it? That's an indicator that they want a leadership role. Do they look for opportunities to improve how things get done? Are they looking for opportunities to mentor and share experiences, right? And this is really important, looking for opportunities to mentor and share experience and providing feedback. Because if somebody's doing that, that's telling you that they enjoy the people side of things. They enjoy supporting others and developing others, right? Which is key to a leadership role. A lot of people take on the role of a leader and are shocked at the amount of time that is spent coaching and developing and providing feedback. And for some people, that's a drain, right? That's a strain. It's not an energizer. And exceptional leaders make supporting and developing others a priority, and they should, and they enjoy it, okay? And so we want to look for people who enjoy that people side of things. Also, are they energized when faced with challenging goals? This is an indicator of willingness as well. As you all know, leaders are going to be facing challenges, especially new leaders, in the first year as they adjust. And so looking for individuals who enjoy challenge and who are energized by it as opposed to overwhelmed by challenges, right? So we want to look for individuals who enjoy the challenge, who are motivated by challenges as opposed to strained by them. And those individuals, that is also an indicator of willingness and readiness to take on more responsibility. Do they take advantage of every opportunity to learn and develop professionally? And do they have they set goals? Do they have a clear picture of where they want to be 1 to 5 years from now? Because clearly, if they have a goal to become a manager, then they're willing to take on that responsibility. That's part of their own professional career plan. So you want to look at indicators of potential and ability to lead, as well as indicators of willingness when you're developing your leadership readiness assessment and identifying your emerging leaders. Okay. So we've spent some time understanding the need. We've also looked at how to, or how, not just how to identify your leaders, but what you're looking for when you're identifying emerging leaders, so that you now have a plan to develop your emerging leader readiness assessment. And we also have an emerging leader readiness assessment should you want to use an off-the-shelf one. I'm more than happy to chat with you about it. I wanted, though, to provide you with the tools and understanding of developing your own out of respect for, for your budgets. But of course, I'm here to chat if you want to. So the developing piece. So identifying is the first step. So now let's assume you have this funnel of emerging leaders that have the potential to be exceptional leaders. So you want to develop and invest in developing this pool. And why do you want to develop them and invest in them? Well, A, you want them to be ready to hit the ground running when your baby boomers all exit and you're left with all of these gaps in your leadership structure. You want to have a pool of individuals who will be ready to hit the ground running and not just maintain the status quo of the team that they're joining or leading, but are ready to continue to develop that team and continue to stretch that team and motivate that team to achieve even better results, so that there isn't that gap in giving that leader all of this time to develop once they're in the role, and you sort of hit that pause button on productivity and achieving even better results. You want them to hit the ground running and continue to raise that bar and develop that team and have a seamless transition there as possible. Okay, so that's one reason you want to develop. Another reason you want to develop and invest in emerging leaders is from a retention perspective, right? So we talked a little bit about it before. Retention, an individual is more likely to stay if they have trust in their leader, okay, and have confidence in their leader. So you want to develop them so that they can step into the role, so that their team members have the confidence and they're more likely to stay. And also develop because you want to retain these emerging leaders. You see potential there, and you want that potential to stay within your organization. And so we know that when we invest in professional development, when we show our emerging leaders that we value you, we see you as the future leaders of our organization, and we want to support you, that they will be more likely to stay. We are showing them a path through this organization, and we are committed to supporting them along that path. Okay, so we want to develop for a number of reasons. And what I want to do through this development piece is to give you an idea of what your emerging leader development plan can look like. So you can walk away with some chunks that you can apply to your own emerging leader development plan. Okay, so you have a clear understanding of some of the components of developing your leaders. And what we find oftentimes in organizations is that they will take their emerging leaders and take them through a 1 or 2 day workshop, a 1 or 2 day training session where leaders learn all of the basics of being a leader, right? All of the fundamentals which are key, which is great. The challenge, though, is that most organizations that we have worked with do those 2 day sessions or 1 day session, and then the leader isn't supported in transferring that knowledge back into the work environment, right? So it's this 1 day wonder workshop where they get all of these new tools and all of this new learning in a compact amount of time, and then they walk out and then a week later they've forgotten all about it. Okay, and so in your emerging leader development plan, you want to ensure that there's a process there where not only can they gain new learning and new skills and tools, but there's the ability for them to transfer that learning and have trial and error, have support, have feedback along the way so that they can become better. They can have the opportunity to apply that learning and become comfortable in demonstrating those skills and those behaviors and practices, and be ready and prepared when you say, go, here's your new role. So let's talk about how to create that preparedness, how to create that ability for people to not only learn and get new skills, but apply them with support along the way. So when you develop your emerging leaders, you want to give them the ongoing ability, like I said, to acquire skills and knowledge needed to succeed as a new leader. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing some of those things. So when you identify, when you're assessing for leadership readiness, you're really assessing those skills and knowledge that are needed. Okay, so I've already shared a little bit with you around the skills and knowledge needed, and I'll share a little bit more as well, some topics that could shape your emerging leader development plan. You also want to give leaders the ongoing ability to apply their new skills and knowledge and be given the time to apply and develop their skills and to receive ongoing coaching and support. Okay? And it's essential to be able to measure progress, right? So at the beginning of this, you're identifying them through measurement, right? You're assessing leadership readiness, and you can see their skills, where their strengths are, where their gaps are. And then after they go through, or along the way as they go through the Emerging Leader Development Program that you'll be developing, to measure progress along the way so that you can see that they are actually building these skills and strengthening their awareness and their knowledge as they move through the program, so that you can be confident and they can be confident that they're ready to step into a new role. So our recommendation when you're developing an emerging leader plan is, first of all, to take a blended learning approach, which I'm going to be talking to you a little bit, that not just to focus on a 1 day workshop or a 2 day workshop, that you use a number of different modes or modalities in delivering the learning, and that it occurs over at least a 2-month period, so that there's time for people to apply the learning and get feedback and coaching along the way. So let's take a look at that, at how you do this. So the first step is asking the question, all right, well, what knowledge and skills do these emerging leaders need? And we've talked a little bit about that, and I'm going to share some other topics with you that you can consider, okay? Then it's, okay, well, we know what knowledge and skills they need. How are they going to gain that knowledge and skills? And so there are different options for you to do that. You can have full day sessions once a month over a 6-month period, or over a 3-month period. You can have short half-day sessions, webinars, and e-learning. The goal here, though, is asking yourself, how can they gain the knowledge in a way that they will be able to transfer this learning, and it's not just a one-time thing, that they're able to build on the learning that they're getting over 2 months, 6 months, or 1 year. And I'm not going to pre-assume how much time or money you have to develop your emerging leaders. So at the very least, you want to develop over 2 months and take them through a 2-month training program, so to speak. I have clients who have a 1-year emerging leader program where every month the emerging leaders take a different course and then apply that learning between each courses. So it's dependent on where you are. These are just some examples. And so the next question you want to ask is, how will they be supported in transferring the learning to the workplace? So we have our learning sessions, and then what's going to happen between those sessions? How are we as an HR team or as an organization going to support these emerging leaders as they move through this program? And how can we involve the current managers, the current emerging leaders' bosses in supporting them through this and providing them feedback? Do we have a mentoring program here that we can include to support these managers in, or these emerging leaders in applying their new skills, for example? And then the final question you want to ask is, how will their skill development and growth be assessed? Right? So you want to be able to measure over time so that you can see that they're actually improving and actually building skills and will actually be prepared to step into this role. Okay, so I want to give you an example of an emerging leader program, and I'll share with you our own emerging leader 2-month program that you are more than willing to take components of and incorporate into you're more than able to. We're happy for you to take components of and apply to your own organization to give you a sense of some of the topics that we're including and the structure of it. Okay, so this is an 8-week program. 2 months, like I said, a minimum of 2 months is what we're recommending, and it's a very intensive program. So we've identified the 6 topics that we have found to make the biggest difference in a leader's ability to really hit the ground running, like I've been saying. And these six topics really focus in on some of the areas that we already talked about in identifying your emerging leaders, right? The ability to lead self. So the first topic is leading self. The second topic is creating that environment where people do excel, so leading with passion and purpose, engaging others, tapping into the best of others, providing feedback, okay? Building engagement and accountability is another topic, right? How do we create that sense of accountability within a team to take ownership for success? How do we build employee engagement? What does that mean, and what is my role as a leader? How do we develop teams? And how do we manage change? So those are the main topics of our emerging leader program, okay? And they focus in on those skills that are most important for a new leader. And then at the end, we focus in on maintaining that momentum. So that now what? Now we're coming to the end of this program. How are you going to continue to develop yourself? What resources are within your own organization to draw from? Who will be your mentors? How will you continue to excel and develop as a leader? And so we deliver these programs. I want to get to the blended learning approach. Is we deliver these programs through a variety of ways, or these courses. Okay, we deliver them through highly interactive and live webinars. There are short videos. There's coaching, one-on-one coaching directly with me. There are leadership assessments, personal development plans. And so there is ongoing support and development. So each group participates in live and interactive webinars every week, and then they are given homework to apply back on the job, along with coaching and regular support from me, so that they are able to apply the skills and knowledge that they're gaining through these webinars that are live and interactive. It's not just me talking at them like this one is. Okay, it's a very much a dialogue. So this is an example of components that you can include, right? You want to identify the courses, the topics you want to impart. You want to ensure that you have an assessment so that people understand where their strengths are, where their growth opportunities are, that they have an opportunity to develop their own personal development plan. Okay, so what do I want to achieve now that I know where my strengths and opportunities for improvement are? And then how are you going to impart the learning? Okay, so in this case, because this is a distance learning program where we have companies from all over the world participating in this, we're doing it through webinars and videos and telephone coaching. In your organization, you might want to have half-day sessions or lunch and learns or full-day sessions. You may have an organization that is national, so you might want to have interactive webinars as well so that you can bring leaders from different parts of your organization together. So it's dependent on what is going to work best from you. The key is having a number of different opportunities to learn and to apply that learning. Okay? Are there going to be, quote unquote homework? How are they going to apply that learning, and how are you going to check back in on that? Okay, so in this program, there's 3 to 4 hours of learning and application per week, so that it is intensive, but it's focused on developing your leadership skills. Okay, so please take sort of as a next step is reflect on how you're going to identify your leaders and what are those indicators you're going to look for, and you can draw from this webinar on that. And then based on that, okay, how are we going to develop them? So don't identify your emerging leaders until you have a plan to develop them. Okay. And so if you're interested in the Ready, Set, Lead program, reach out to me. I'm not going to spend any more time on this now, but feel free to reach out. Our next group is starting in October, and there is still space available should you feel this might be a fit for your emerging leaders and would prefer to outsource it versus do it in-house. Happy to chat with you about it. So we've talked about identifying and developing your emerging leaders. Then the other piece that we want to talk about is retaining. And if you do the first two pieces well, if you take time to identify your emerging leaders and assess for that, and then invest in developing them, you're well along the way to retaining them. Okay, so research shows that these are the main retention drivers, right? First of all, people are more likely to stay if they have a strong relationship, as I've been saying, with their direct manager and senior leadership. Okay, people are more likely to stay if there are growth opportunities. So in your organization, if you're demonstrating a commitment to emerging leaders and demonstrating a commitment to career paths and that long-term loyalty approach, people are going to be more committed to the organization and be able to see a future there. More people will stay if more people are recognized, okay? And I don't mean by recognized through only financial means, but ongoing recognition of you're doing a great job and showing that through developing them and investing in them. People will stay if they're engaged in decision-making, invited to participate, feel engaged. Okay, people are more likely to stay if they're actively engaged in the organization and if they feel a connection to the company's purpose. And so when you invest in developing your emerging leaders, you are bringing them into connecting them to the organization and showing them that there's a future here and we believe in you and we value you so that they know they are of value to the company. Okay. So it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. We develop our emerging leaders, we invest in them, we show them they're of value, and they're more likely to stay. And when we place people who promote individuals who are ready for leadership roles and have the ability and willingness to lead, then that is also ensuring the retention or supporting the retention. I shouldn't say it ensures it. It supports the retention of the individuals within that team because they're not being replaced with a leader who isn't, quite frankly, ready to lead and then creates, unfortunately, dysfunction and frustration within the team. So we want to avoid that at all costs. Okay, so to recap, we reviewed how to identify. So go back into this video once I send it to you and take out those behaviors and practices to develop your own emerging leader readiness assessment. Or feel free to reach out and inquire about ours. The next step is to develop. And when I say next step, I don't mean develop it after you've identified your emerging leaders. You want to have a development plan in place so that once you've identified your pool, you can take them through this development plan. Don't spend time assessing and identifying and then 6 months later be ready to develop, because those individuals may not be in your organization and things might have changed in 6 months' time. So be prepared to develop as soon as you identify. And then the drivers of retention. And if you do the first two things well, you will be more likely to retain those individuals. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is below. Happy to continue the conversation. We have other webinars regularly every month should you wish to participate. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.